Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm talking about the 2026 Georgia governor's race and one Republican, Marjorie Taylor Greene, at a recent Republican event or convention has been expressing interest in potentially joining this race. So the article begins by saying that Steve Bannon took the stage Friday night at the Georgia Republican convention to say it's too early to be talking about 2026. But that didn't exactly work. There was plenty of praise for President Trump, and while the party took care of their other business, like electing officers and adopting a platform, the 2026 races for governor and Senate were already on the minds of many in the convention on Friday and Saturday. Everybody's campaigns as quick as they can, said U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Lots of other people showed up surrounding or sounding like candidates. Greene, after passing on a U.S. Senate bid against Democratic incumbent Jon Ossoff, laid out a slate of state-level issues on Saturday that will likely fuel speculation she might run for governor to replace term-limited Republican Governor Brian Kemp. Echoing Trump's signature slogan, Greene told the convention to make Georgia great again for Georgia. She called for abolishing the state income tax, infusing classical principles into Georgia's public schools, reopening mental hospitals to take care of mentally ill people off the streets, and changing Georgia's economic incentive policy to de-emphasize tax breaks for foreign companies and television and movie makers. Now these are state-level issues, but I want you to be talking about them, Greene said. In her AP interview before the speech, Greene said running for governor is, quote, an option, but also said she has a wonderful blessing of serving her northwestern Georgia district and exercising influence in Washington. Pretty much every single primary poll shows that I am the top leader easily, and that gives me the ability to think about it, but it's a choice, it's my own, that I will talk about with my family. Someone who's more likely to run for governor is Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, who's expected to announce a bid later this summer, said, I promise you I'm going to be involved in this upcoming election cycle. Like Greene, Jones is among the Georgia Republicans closest to Trump and emphasized that the circle is small of prominent Republicans who stood by the president after the 2020 election. Jones took a shot at Attorney General Chris Carr, who declared his bid for governor in December and showed up Friday to work the crowd but did not deliver a speech to the convention. Always remember who showed up for you, Jones said, and always remember who delivers on their promises. Carr told the AP that he didn't speak on Friday because he was instead attending a campaign event at a restaurant in Dalton on Friday, emphasizing the importance of building personal relationships. Although Trump targeted him for defeat in the 2022 primary, Carr said he's confident that Republicans will support him, calling himself a proud Kemp Republican and saying he would focus on bread and butter issues. This state's been built on agriculture, manufacturing, trade, the military, public safety, and these are issues that Georgians care about. The easiest applause line all weekend was pledging to help beat Jon Ossoff. Jon Ossoff should not be in office at all, said U.S. Representative Buddy Carter, who is spending heavily on television advertising to support his Senate run. Folks, President Trump needs backup. He needs backup in the Senate, said State Insurance Commissioner John King, who is also running for Senate. He's going to need a 4-year majority to get the job done, and that starts right here in the state of Georgia. Former University of Tennessee football coach Derek Dooley, who expressed interest on Friday in running for Senate, did not address delegates. But one other potential Senate candidate, U.S. Representative Mike Collins, did. Collins told delegates that in 2026, it was a priority to defeat Ossoff and replace him with a solid conservative. It's not clear, though, if Collins himself will run. So that's where the article begins on that part. And it's really interesting because the 2026 governor's race in Georgia, as though it is very competitive, it probably isn't talked about as much due to the fact the Georgia Senate race is also happening in Georgia, where Democrat Jon Ossoff is running for re-election. This one is likely going to be getting a lot of the media attention because it's a Senate race. Senate races, presidential races usually get more publicity than governor's races. But the hypothetical polling early on showed that for Senate, Jon Ossoff was trouncing Marjorie Taylor Greene in every early poll that was taken. Ossoff was either getting 50% of the vote or just a bit shy of 50% of the vote, while Marjorie Taylor Greene yet to break 40%, where a lot of other Republicans who even were losing to Jon Ossoff were still able to break 40%, like Mike Collins or even Kelly Loeffler in one poll. Marjorie Taylor Greene was never really able to do that. So for the governor's race, the assumption would be starting off that Marjorie Taylor Greene would probably poll relatively highly in the Republican primary, but wouldn't be able to do too well in a general election. And again, just to show you what the early polling looked like on that front, the hypothetical polling for the Republican primary, let me just pull this up right here. It showed that Marjorie Taylor Greene, in the Trafalgar poll that included her, she started out as the biggest name with a lead in the Republican primary. And the concern among many Republicans in Georgia was that if Marjorie Taylor Greene did win the Republican primary, it would likely be what happened with Herschel Walker in 2022, where many Republicans feel that he lost a very winnable race against Raphael Warnock, but Marjorie Taylor Greene may be like that on steroids and may even get trounced in Georgia so badly that it could hurt other Republicans down ballot. But the Republicans were able to avoid that situation on the Senate race. The governor's race we'll have to wait and see, though. The Attorney General, Chris Carr, has declared he is running again. Marjorie Taylor Greene, along with Burt Jones and Kelly Loeffler, all have publicly expressed interest in running for this race. Brad Raffensperger, the current Secretary of State of the state of Georgia, is listed as a potential candidate for both governor and Senate. Waiting to see what he's going to do as well. I don't think he'll probably run against him, though, as Chris Carr seems to be the more Brian Kemp-aligned candidate in this race. I think it's more likely Raffensperger would probably run for Senate than governor, but we'll have to wait and see if that changes. Hypothetical polling done so far showed that Burt Jones led over Chris Carr from a poll back in September of 2023 with over 73% of the vote undecided. So there's essentially been zero polling done in this race. This Republican primary is wide open, but if the Senate race was any indicator, Marjorie Taylor Greene would probably start off as the favorite in the Republican primary due to the fact she is the person that most Republicans have heard from. However, two things could also be true. If Marjorie Taylor Greene and Burt Jones were to both run against each other, it's possible they would split the MAGA vote and the very MAGA vote in that Republican primary, which may open the door for someone like Chris Carr to win that primary as the more moderate establishment type Republican rather than a MAGA Republican. So it'll be interesting to see if Marjorie Taylor Greene and Burt Jones do actually decide to both run in this race. I think it's more likely than not Burt Jones is definitely going to run. I think it's like 95% sure Burt Jones will run. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'd put it honestly at 50-50 right now. It sounds like she wants to run. She's laying the issues down that she wants to run, but she also probably has a much easier time of getting reelected in her House district than she does at running for governor. And just to show you what district she represents, Marjorie Taylor Greene represents this district right here, Georgia 14, which she won by 28 points in 2024. Back in 2022, she won it by 30 points, and in 2020, she won it by about 49 and a half. If she runs for governor in 2026, she's not going to get anywhere near that margin at winning that in 2026. So that's for the Republican side of things. As for the Democrats right now, 4 Democrats are currently running. Keisha Lance Bottoms, the former mayor of Atlanta, is running. Derek Jackson, the state representative, Jason Estevez, the state senator, and old Jimmy Brown, a church founder. All 4 of them are running. Of the candidates so far, I say Keisha Lance Bottoms starts out with the highest name identification, which means she probably starts out as the most likely to win the primary. But all eyes are on former Democratic nominee for governor in 2018 and 2022, Stacey Abrams. If she were to run, she still has very high name recognition, both in the Georgia Democratic primary and nationwide. So if she were to enter this race, I would assume Abrams starts out as the favorite to win the Democratic primary and be the Democratic nominee for governor in 2026. Lucy McBath, U.S. Representative from the 6th District, is another potential candidate who has expressed interest, as well as Mika Thurman, a former DeKalb County CEO from 2017 to 2025. Van Johnson, the mayor of Savannah, Georgia, is also listed as a potential candidate. We know the grandson of Jimmy Carter, Jason Carter, has already ruled out a bid for this race. The hypothetical polling early on, again, this was from that same poll back in September of 2023, so take it with a grain of salt. But Stacey Abrams still had a majority of the vote in that poll, 52% saying they want Abrams to run again, 34% say other, 14% undecided. As for this race right now, Cook Politico has it as a toss-up, Inside Elections has it as a battleground, Salvador's Crystal Ball has it as lean Republican. Recent elections in Georgia, 2022, the governor's race, Brian Kemp won re-election against Stacey Abrams by 7.5% in what was expected to be a very close race. Kemp ended up winning by a likely Republican margin versus Abrams. Kemp getting roughly 2.1 million votes, Abrams getting 1.8 million, so a little bit over 300,000 vote win for Kemp over Abrams in the state. That was 4 years after 2018, where in that Democratic-friendly midterm, Kemp only won by 1.4% against Stacey Abrams in a very close race. Kemp getting 1,978,000 votes, Abrams 1,923,000. So roughly about 55,000 votes separating Kemp and Abrams in that very close race. I think it's more likely, seeing as the election will be taking place in 2026, we see a governor's race in Georgia more similar to the 2018 map than to the 2022 map, which was a midterm that was supposed to be a very good night for the Republicans, ended up being more like a split even night, where Democrats and Republicans nationwide did about the same, about 50-50 on the overall governor votes. I think it's more likely we see a 2018 type environment than a 2022 type environment. Worth noting, the presidential race in 2024, Donald Trump did win the state by 2.2%, but in 2020, Joe Biden did win the state by 0.24%, the first time a Democrat won the state of Georgia, I believe going back all the way until 1996 or 1992, with Bill Clinton winning it, with Ross Perot taking a big percentage of the vote away. Comparing recent election results, Georgia trending towards President Trump's direction by 2.4% from 2020 to 2024. Compared to a lot of other states, it's not the biggest trend, actually, as some other states have shifted. For instance, Colorado shifted 0.1% more Republican than Georgia did from 2020 to 2024. New Mexico shifted 5 points. We saw New Jersey, of course, shift 10. From 2016 to 2024, however, Georgia still shifted by 2.9% towards the Democrats' direction. So even in Trump's 3 presidential runs, Georgia shifted more towards the Democrats than the Republicans, which could be a big sign of concern for the Republicans in 2026. As for the governor's race, though, right now, if I were to start it out as a ranking, I do have the Republicans narrowly favored to hold on and win re-election, but I have it as a lean Republican ranking. I think this election in this midterm is going to be very big for Georgia and for Georgia Republicans, because if the Georgia Republicans do lose this governor's race, when right now I also have the Republicans losing the Senate race to Jon Ossoff, the Democrats would then have control of the Georgia governor, Georgia's both Senate seats in Georgia. That would be definitely a big changing of the guard in the state and could have very important ramifications for the 2028 presidential election, where Democrats will be hoping to win the state back to their column in 2028. But I do have the Georgia Republicans narrowly favored, winning it by about 1.5% to 2% at this time. I do think Chris Carr will be the Republican nominee at this point in time, but if Marjorie Taylor Greene or Burt Jones were to enter the race, we'll have to wait and see how primary polling may change that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts, and I hope to see you in a future video.